Welcome to Commerce Media Matters, your go-to podcast for unpacking the world of commerce media. Here, we catch up with industry leaders on news, research, insights, perspectives, and everything in between.
Hi, I'm Paul, Director of Commercial Data and E-commerce at News Corp Australia.
And I'm Nick, Founder and CEO at Voodoo. Today, we welcome Lance Eerhard to the podcast. Lance is a trailblazer in the e-commerce world with a remarkable career shaping the e-commerce sector in Australia and APAC. From leading the development of Woolworths Marketplace to holding senior roles at iconic Australian brands. His journey is nothing short of impressive. Now, as CEO of BuyersCircle, Lance brings a unique perspective on the dynamic digital retail landscape. Welcome, Lance. Fantastic to have you on board.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You've had a diverse career in e-commerce sector with roles in WooliesX, Carlton, United Breweries, Dan Murphy's, and now BuyersCircle. Can you walk us through your career journey and how it's shaped your approach to business?
Yeah, sure. Well, interestingly, my career started actually in commercial and sales. So I was in sales for a long while, and then I was in a buying role. And that's kind of how it got me to be at Dan Murphy's. So I was the head buyer at Vinomofo after a bit of career turbulence in my early career.
Oh, right.
And Dan Murphy's team tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know, we're going to scale our e-com business and we really want some help. And you seem like you got some specialty in that area. So that's how I got to Dan Murphy's. Did a couple of years in their buying team to start with. And then I took an opportunity where I took over as the chief digital officer for a very short period of time. And we tested that out for a little while and then went back into the merchandising team. And in the end, they offered me the role as the CDO. And I thought, you know what? I've spent so many years in sales and buying that actually, you know, doubling down on a career that is the future, I guess, of where careers are going to be, and going at digital was a good thing to do. So took that role on and did that for a couple of years, went to CUB for a couple of years and launched their e-com proposition over there, and then back to WooliesX to launch the marketplace. And the thing that was really common across those three roles in digital is my focus was on the future of e-commerce, not what's happening now. So forget about picking and packing orders and, you know, getting customers to your website. You know, Dan's was about the marketplace, the loyalty program, what are we doing with customer data? CUB was really about, you know, how do we actually sell beer online? Beer wasn't being sold online at the time, so how do we sustainably do that? And then obviously WooliesX, the marketplace, which was about, you know, the next horizons for woolworths.com.au, which is a hugely successful website, but actually how do you continue to drive customer value, customer loyalty, and, you know, give your customers more than what you're doing today? So that's really shaped my career, and sort of my future focus for business is keeping focused on what's coming next. Not sort of standing and waiting for customers to come to us and just doing what we're doing today, but what's on that next horizon of kind of where customers are headed to rather than kind of where they are today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Nice segue. So what's next is, you know, BuyersCircle. It's a social commerce platform that helps sellers expand and monetize their product range. Can you tell us a bit more about BuyersCircle and what's inspired this model, and I guess what the key attributes of BuyersCircle that differentiate you from those other platforms that are out there?
So our platform was built by some Alibaba executives, actually. So in the early days, they took their checks from Jack Ma and bailed out, and two of the families moved here to Australia. And they went through the period in China where social selling was a massive thing. You know, you had the key opinion leaders, which is a key point for going forward. But the key opinion leaders powering kind of Alibaba's forthcoming platforms and Pinduo Duo mainly, which was the thing that's, you know, overtaken Alibaba in a very short period of time. And so they came to Australia, realized nothing was happening here. And on top of that, there was a highly underserviced market here, which is the Chinese Australian market. So they built a platform. It's a WeChat mini program. And it is the basis of our kind of technology and business today. And what it did was allowed key opinion leaders in the Australian market to either use their existing products or use the products that we supply to sell to their groups here in Australia. And so that platform now today has 30,000 sellers on it, 950,000 active shoppers, all in the Chinese Australian community.
Wow.
All powered by a mini program and all in Mandarin. So that was really the genesis of the company. And in 2021, actually, I joined the company in 2022, but in 2021, they tapped me on the shoulder, the investors did, and said, hey, we've got this amazing asset, but one, we don't know what's next for that, and two, we want to know how we do it for the rest of the Australian market. That's where it came from. Today, we have a platform. We're focused very heavily on our Shopify plugin, which allows Shopify users to grab our product range sell it to their kind of audiences. And we have a beta of an app for the creator economy where they can actually create a store using our product range to sell to their audience and to kind of start to monetize their audience and their influence, really. I know we call them creators now, not influencers, but it allows them to sort of do more than just be the digital billboard they were before. It allows them to bring the transaction to the point of influence rather than kind of referring them away to another website or another place, which does two key things for them. One, helps them make money. The second thing is it helps them keep their audience, because the incumbent platforms in this market are very much in that affiliate marketing space where, I'm pretty and I'm on Instagram and I hold up a sunscreen and I send you to somewhere else. Maybe it's a maya.com.au or maybe it's a brand website. But either way, I take this hard-earned audience and I send it to somebody else. Whereas with our platform, it helps them create their own store. That means their shoppers or their audience are staying on their own store and staying in the environment that they've created. They've worked so hard to build this audience and, now they can keep it for themselves, if that makes sense.
Well, you weren't kidding about being on the forefront of all the emerging trends. I mean, culturally and linguistically diverse audiences here in Australia are a huge growth opportunity, and so really interesting to see what you're doing in that space.
BuyersCircle's well positioned for the future. Well positioned.
Yeah, really interesting business. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go into it too far, but the called audience groups, I mean, that's how they shop, by recommendation of a peer. You can't intercept them with traditional media like you can for a traditional Anglo background. It's the cultural leaders in their community that really they take a recommendation from. I was speaking to someone the other day about Commonwealth Bank and their strategy, and back, it must have been late 80s, they did have a small strategy, and because of that effort back then, when the corporate comms person was asked around why they dominate, I think they get 7 out of 10 new culturally and linguistically diverse, Australians. And they said, why is it so high? And it's because they started so much back then. So every time someone comes to Australia from, I guess, the Mandarin Chinese community or the Hindi community, because they say, hey, who do you bank with? They go, well, we've banked with Commonwealth Bank for 10 years. They pick them up because it's that cultural leader and that recommendation piece that comes across is so important. So you're really onto something with BuyersCircle.
Yeah, we haven't really done much with it yet, but we're actually about to start working with another bank and an electricity company where we've created a retail media play within our WeChat mini program and starting to introduce their services in Mandarin, in situ, with all of those, not necessarily having people push it per se, think of it more like retail media. And so they'll start to see these brands in front of their shopping missions, as they go, for exactly that purpose, because, there's no real leading player in electricity at least, but certainly in banking, CommBank dominate. If they can start to engage, it's funny, I talked about it, whole different context in this conversation, but our retail media is very, very strong because you can have an always-on conversation with that audience where they're shopping in their language.
Yeah.
Versus kind of Cadbury releasing a specialty block at Lunar New Year, which is like once a year. They vaguely talk to that community. We can put it in front of them all day, every day, in an environment they're comfortable in and in the language that they're comfortable in. So very, very early days on that right now, but yeah, we'll do a bit.
No, interesting stuff. News, we've got a huge focus on. With the immigration and migration growth, it's bigger than we've ever had, even post World War II.
Correct.
But it's coming from a much diverser background, and it's the non-Christian, non-Anglo backgrounds, and so the cultural divide in Australia is much greater than ever was before. And so I think it's actually, we were working with Cultural Pulse. They were saying that 91% of senior marketers in Australia are from an Anglo-Celtic background, yet all the growth are in these communities that they are not thinking about and not designing for.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the most successful conversations we've had so far about our retail media, Paul, have been with brands who are used to having to employ somebody from that community in specific branches or places to service that community properly. They don't market to them. They don't know how, but You can't have a Westpac branch in Chatswood without having a Mandarin speaking person on hand. You can't have a BMW dealer or a Mercedes dealer in the North Shore of Sydney without having somebody on hand who can speak Mandarin.
I live right in that spot, so I'm well aware. Yeah. I'd be the anomaly walking through the bank in Chatswood for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we're working with brands. It's been a hard slog actually to work with some of these brands because, to your point, they're Anglo people. They don't get it. They don't understand how important it is. And unfortunately, when you show them, the transaction level and eyeballs we get in our platform on a daily basis, they kind of go, "Hang on, what? Sorry."
Well, I mean, I think we've got to start talking in language that they understand. So if you're after market share, the proportion of the market that is Anglo-Celtic is actually declining in Australia, and these other called audience groups are, expanding, and they're expanding at a rapid knots, and so the opportunity for growth, which is revenue, is there if they can get it right. But yeah, I think we're certainly at News Corp over the next 12 months. One of our ethos is for being for all Australians, and we're going to try and walk the walk now, not just say it. So we're certainly going to get down that whole, how do we cater for, we're lucky that we've got news.com.au as a URL. So those that come here and they want local news, they'll probably, they'll still be looking at the Hindi Times or whatever the Mandarin newspaper from their country of origin. But when they want local news, we've got a great URL. So how do we cater for them culturally though a bit more and lean into that?
Well, back to my AI hype comment, the use case for you guys could get super interesting when it comes to translation. Not there yet.
100% what we're exploring. So I'll actually post this because we won't bore everybody to death. They've probably got to get off to other meetings. But I'd love to pick your brain. I mean, and I was going to ask this anyway. So if you're at WooliesX, then where was your coffee shop in Surrey Hills? Was it Franco?
No, not Franco. So Franco was definitely one of choice. I'm a complete coffee nerd, absolute. If it's no good, I won't drink it. Coffee nerd. Yeah, I'd be up at Sample regularly.
He's from Melbourne, Paul. He's got taste.
Believe it or not, Melbourne coffees. Okay, well, I need to schedule a coffee with you to pick your brain about this stuff and see where we can work a bit more together. But I won't do my sales mission on the podcast call.
The idea of keeping them where they are, that speaks volumes to what we do and what I do. Are you finding that that success of keeping them in that shopping environment is really working well?
Yeah, it does for the creator. It's still been a journey with brands for us. So, we have, this is, like I said before, it's in a beta stage for us now. We have a limited range that we make available. And a lot of brands we're trying to work with at least are still trying to wrap their head around, I guess, the value that the creator brings to the conversation. So it works great. And, it works most where that key opinion leader is the key point. We tried around with big influencers, small influencers, all these sorts of things at the start.
Yeah.
But actually where it works the best for us is where you would consider somebody to be a key opinion leader, where there's an open dialogue between the end users and that influencer or creator, where there's a back and forward, where there's advice given, and where the user truly feels some sort of affinity to the creator. So it's not about the beautiful woman or man standing on the beach, in their Speedos with, sunscreen or whatever. It's about, your kids are like my kids. And so therefore you'll like the same toys that I like to buy. And here's a good example of that you can buy. Or this is my body type and body shape. And so this clothing fits me perfectly. It took me ages to find this top because, I've got, broad shoulders or I'm a bit taller than most people or whatever. And this fits me really well. So where there's this really nice synergy between the audience and the creator, and they tend to be smaller audiences too. Our key audience for our creator channel is only sort of 20,000, 30,000 followers, which allows them to create an environment and a conversation with their end user rather than just kind of that's the digital billboard that, we all think of when we think of influencer marketing. It's about more users rather than more engaged users, if that makes sense.
It's that authenticity and trust that the creator can do with that smaller audience group that, that appeals. It's people like me when they see it, isn't it? I mean, that's why it's, you talked about the Chinese Australian community. They're very much about somebody in their social circle recommending them a product. It's a trust piece, isn't it?
100%. And it's the same outside of that as well. That there are beautiful parallels there, and trust is that key point you make, Paul, where I trust you for whatever reason it might be. And it might be that you're an expert, or it might just be that you're in my community. But that's becoming the real basis of retail in this country, where it's about trust, and it's always been there. You know, we've always had these Roy Morgan research with the most trusted brands and these sorts of things. But it's actually going down into a more fractured kind of one-to-one level that, you know, the old trends of e-com being personalization.
Yeah.
People are going back to, I want to walk into a small store where the lady knows my name. She knows what the supplements I'm using are, or the food that I like to eat, or whatever it is. And we have a conversation. It's that barista type experience that consumers are not only having or going back to in an offline environment, but they're actually looking for it in an online environment now as well. And we think that creator commerce part of it can really plug that gap. As this trend continues to evolve in the market, I think creator commerce is actually kind of poised to do that, where big brands find it really hard. They're reliant on some sort of platform or whatever to try and emulate that for them. So,
and Lance, do you think there's an element of, you know, we talked about trust, but with all the scams and things that are out there and privacy concerns, et cetera, do you think that creator economy has been built off the back of, I know this person, I identify with this person's putting their face into the creator or the ad or the call to action, so therefore I'm more likely to feel like I'm not going to get scammed. I'm not going to be, you know, seeing money disappear from my account after one small mistake.
Yeah, it definitely is, Paul. I think, you know, what people tried to do and what was happening in, you know, the Southeast Asian markets and China was these promoted type of people. You know, there's a promoted ad with the ice bath, or there's a promoted ad with the little game unit, or there's whatever the trending product was, had some faceless kind of person in front of it. And that works to some extent, but doesn't really work that well here. Whereas when you go to somebody that you know and trust, like if Nick's recommending me something, I know Nick, so therefore I feel more comfortable with that transaction. So I do think with privacy, that piece of it, I think, is going to become really important as trust and privacy, especially in Western markets, becomes such an important thing for consumers. And it's driven by the conversations that I had more broadly. It's age old, you know. I think when I talk to investors about what we do and they don't really know what we do, I liken it back to the Tupperware lady. You know, she comes to your house, you get to know her a little bit, you get to know the products a little bit, and then you buy the Tupperware. She's not selling you the Tupperware. Yeah. She's just the agent on behalf of Tupperware, right?
It's not necessarily personalized. It's actually personal.
Totally that.
Yeah, right.
That's what we've seen with our creator business as well. If they don't truly have a connection to them, then it just doesn't work. We had one trial. It was this guy. He had a very good audience. They seemed like they were highly engaged, like lots of engagement with his posts and those type of things. But he did his typical thing. He went down to Bondi. He took his shirt off, he leaned against the post, and he put a pair of Birkenstocks on his feet. And then he was trying to sell these Birkenstocks to his audience. Not a single pair. Didn't sell a single pair. Lots of people went to the page, but didn't sell a single pair. Now, when I compare that to another creator we have who has a closed environment that she has conversations with, she talks about her local area, her kids, you know, what's good to do with your kids in the area, those sorts of things. She put the Birkenstocks in her audience and she sold like 200 pairs in an hour.
Wow.
Because the people had a connection with her. And when she was saying, you know, I really like my Birkenstocks, this is my second pair I'm buying, by the way, I've got them on my store, it just worked. I see that as the future here for not just what we're trying to do, but retail in general, where if you don't have that trust with your consumer, it's just not going to work anymore. And unfortunately, we've seen it with some of the larger kind of e-com sites that were selling, you know, no-name brands, super cheap TVs, cheap electronics, these sorts of things. Consumers have now moved back, and if you go and look at any analyst reports, they're going back to big brand TVs, big brand appliances, because they've lost trust in these kind of cheaper, if you like, models and products. So consumers are swinging back to that kind of well-known because that trust is eroded. So it's an interesting trend in retail, I think, that we'll see play out over the next couple of years that will be great for some businesses, certainly, hopefully for us, but it's going to be a problem for some of the existing businesses in market as they keep trying to do what they were doing before, if that makes sense.
Great. That's fantastic. Really enjoying this conversation. And I think kind of leads into the next in regards to, in shopping habits and influencing shopper habits. Social commerce is huge, Lance. And Paul, we know it is. We see it in exploding. We see politically trying to stop it in other markets and those platforms really blowing up. Where do you see the future of commerce heading, like for social commerce? Because you're in this space and you're so knowledgeable about it. Like, where do you see it going, and what's your thoughts around what's in store for BuyersCircle?
Yeah, look, the future, as I see it, leads back to that one-to-one communication for creators and their audiences. And that ability, it'll actually end up in a live commerce environment. We've seen that happen in Southeast Asia where, live videos is where things are happening. But it'll still be very one-to-one. It'll be that, very personal, to your point before, Nick, rather than personalized. I don't see it in this market getting to those 3 million products sold in 3-minute type places that we see in China because the market's just not big enough. The interesting thing that I'm observing, and I'm not saying it'll never happen, I think we'll probably have to do it through partnerships at some point in time, is if you look at what happened, especially with the Meta products originally and their stores and these sorts of things, it never really caught and it never really worked. And the reason that I suppose I'm probably hypothesizing here, but what I observed that those things didn't work is it was the old school brands trying to put their shops into Meta and pushing it to what audience, because they don't really have an audience. And so the future is really going to be extending that range out to the creators themselves.
Yep.
The other thing that I think is really important is the creators are used to seeing big dollars, like here's $10,000 for a post, here's, all these big money. So what we have to try and do, and what we're certainly doing, is making sure that we make the transaction meaningful for them. So, our model is very much essentially a dropship model, but we have a full retail margin and we split it pretty evenly with our creators. In fact, in a lot of cases, they make more than we do on it. Whereas when you go back to that affiliate style of marketing, they're making a very small amount. So it's a lot of effort for a small amount of money. So the future is going to be in that where creators can make decent money out of what they're doing. They don't have to work too hard. They're just monetizing their existing audience. And they've got the right products and brands to sell, like they don't really want to be pushing product they don't care about. They really want to be pushing the products that make sense for their audience. And so our job as BuyersCircle is to continue to kind of use the sourcing capability we have to procure the brands that make sense for them. And so they want to be pushing Birkenstocks sneakers or shoes, Adidas shoes, these sorts of things. They don't really want to be selling some cheap knockoff kind of cookware that they don't really care about. And so, what'll be critical for us going forward and what we're focusing on is partnerships with those types of brands that make sense, whether it be retail brands or brands, to make sure that we can bring to our audience the brands and products that they want to be selling rather than, something that's cheap and cheerful that they don't really care about it.
Yeah. I think one of the things I find really fascinating about the influencer and creator market and the growth is I think it's clear that the creator space and creators as individuals as their audiences grow. So, with the smaller audiences you have on your platform versus some of the larger audiences we see on other platforms, these creators are becoming the brand, right?
100%.
They're establishing their own brands, and it's that brand affinity.
Yeah, look at someone like Mr. Beast. He's a brand unto himself.
Correct. And the question is, we saw Paramount Studios sell off their Paramount Studio lot recently. I think it was like $800 million. The question was, well, is someone like Mr. Beast going to buy that studio? Are we seeing a flip where the creator is going to be in control because they own the audience, the tangible audience first, rather than creating the content and going out and seeing if the audience will engage? They've got an engaged audience and they just tailor the content to fit. So I agree. I think creators have a lot of influence, and I think we're going to see them play a major role moving forward with regards to shopping, and personal shopping. I agree.
100%. I see it on that large end, like a Mr. Beast style thing, and you see some larger ones in Australia as well. You see, Andy Cooks, he's created a cookbook and he's done some cookware and those kind of things.
Yeah.
He's big enough that he can do it now.
Fantastic.
I guess our job as BuyersCircle is to bring that to the rest of the creator economy who don't have the capability, they don't have time and money to pay for a production house, and they're just a guy with a phone. And how can he kind of monetize his audience?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we see our niche, if you like, but also our speciality is saying you don't need to have a producer. You don't need to know how to set up an e-commerce store. You don't need to do any of that. All you need to do is have an engaged audience and you can start to monetize it. We do think that there will be creators that are too big for us, and hopefully we create some of them where they get so big that they can go off and do their own thing.
Yeah.
But the people that can do that is actually a very limited subset of the number of creators that exist. There is this massively underserviced market that historically have tried affiliate marketing, or, they've tried to set up a dropship store through AliExpress, or, they've tried many things. We need to provide them with something that's a bit more convenient and a bit more tailored for kind of their audiences.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the creator, talked a little bit about consumer behavior shifts, but BuyersCircle must be sitting on a wealth of consumer data. What trends are you seeing in consumer behavior that you've noticed recently that, the brands out there should be really paying attention to?
So I think the key one we've already alluded to, which is that there is this massive shift away from not necessarily private label brand, but kind of the smaller, less trusted style of brands back towards bigger brands. It's a lot easier for people on our platform to sell something that's made by Sony than made by, XYZ brand that, may be present in other markets or other retailers, but just, not as well trusted, if that makes sense. So I think there is a shift back towards trust, and not just the retailer and the point of transaction, but actually the product and the brand that they're buying. So I think that's kind of the biggest one. The other thing that I think, and certainly we capture this with our market, is even for big brands, there's certain consumer shopping missions, if you like, which I know is a bit jargony, but if I'm going to somewhere to buy health, as an example, I need supplements or I need particular types of food, organic or whatever it is. Consumers are moving back to specialty retail. They're moving back to, I'm not just going to go to a big supermarket and go to the organic section and hope I can find what I want, or walk into the supplement aisle and hope I can find what I want. People are moving back to, I want to have a conversation with somebody about this. Is this the right supplement for me, or should I be looking at something else? I want all of my shop to be organic, not just the apples and the celery that's available to me. I know that I don't need, this packaged product to be organic, but I'd like it to be. So that's been there for a while with consumers, but it's happening much more aggressively now, where you're seeing it in the retail market. You're seeing more specialty retail, and just like, 15 years ago, we saw a specialty retailer which Woolworths acquired, which is called Thomas Ducks, right? That kind of happened, and then it went away, right? This is one step further, where it's, a naturopath has opened the store and she's doing really well, and she has to employ somebody who's completely knowledgeable, otherwise people don't shop there. We're also seeing that happen in fashion as well.
Wow.
So for us, I think I alluded to it before, the body shape thing. Consumers are much more varied than they used to be, and there's big fashion retail online that's really great and do really great things, which were trends a couple of years ago, fast fulfillment, good returns, these type of things.
Yeah.
If I look back and reflect on the success of some of those retailers, they were successful because they had a good returns policy.
Yeah, right.
They needed a good returns policy because everybody was ordering 3 of the same top in 3 different sizes, finding the one that was right for them and sending back 2. Consumers are over that now. It's actually a hassle. And so they are going back to specialty retail, where they can walk into probably an overpriced boutique, try on the things they want and buy from there. That's happened in our kind of creator commerce as well, where it's about, we talked about it before, there's somebody like me.
There's someone like me curating as well, right? It's the curation.
100%.
It's almost like, well, I trust them to curate a whole bunch of stuff that I like. I don't have to do it.
Correct.
The value is in their curation capability, right?
1,000,000%. And it's not just curation because they like it, but it's curation because it fits me. Whether it's athleisure wear or clothing or shoes or whatever, I think we'll continue to see things push that way. It happened in the US, hasn't really worked here, but Amazon have got the Amazon Associates program where a creator curates something on Amazon. Doesn't really work for the creator; they don't make much money. So, but it is something that they can say, here's my Amazon shop where the things that I like, you might like, are on there. Hasn't really worked that well, but I think that's more because the creators don't push it too hard because they don't make much money out of it, rather than people not wanting to know what I like.
Now, this is an awesome conversation, and I knew you'd be a wealth of knowledge. You always are. Looking back on your career, and now I was going to frame this and say, why don't we pose the question of maybe how has the legendary Faye influenced your career? But I won't. even though I'm dying to. I might do that for another day. Just looking back on your career, what's the one piece of advice you wish you'd received earlier? Maybe something Faye should have told you sooner. Would you want to just mention, Lance, who Faye is quickly?
So Faye is legendary in the Woolworths and many other places, but in the Woolworths ecosystem. And she was instrumental in me taking on the Chief Digital Officer role at Dan Murphy. She also hired me back to Woolworths at WooliesX to launch the marketplace for her. So she is an absolute inspiration of a person when it comes to digital in Australia. She's had hands in all the pies, all the major things that Woolworths has done online, from Dan Murphy's through to Woolworths now.
Yeah, amazing.
She's a true innovator, and she hires great people. And so she has a very loyal group of people, to the point where I went back to Woolies because she asked me to, and that are smart and innovative and really can, bring a lot to the table when it comes. So she doesn't try and do it all by herself. She really brings great people in to help her do it. And I think that's learning number one of things that I should have been told earlier, Nick, is exactly that. Make sure you have the right people around you, especially when you do it. Not everybody has the ability to do it. You're not always in a position where you can surround yourself with the right people, but where you can, it's absolutely pivotal. Where you can't, make sure you can consult the right people. So get access to the people that can really help you drive things forward.
Yeah.
One that I learned a little bit before Faye, actually, before our interactions together was, and I've phrased it probably slightly differently to how it was originally delivered to me, because it was delivered pretty roughly to me, to be honest. But I phrase it in a way of respect the past, but build for the future. You can kind of think of that in a couple of different ways, and you can probably imagine how somebody delivered that pretty roughly to me. But
I can think of a few words you could slot in there.
Yeah. So, but I think that's something that I picked up when I was at Dan's, actually, very much in my time at Dan Murphy's. But I think it's something that served me really well as I've progressed through my career in general. When I was at CUB, one of the first things I had to reflect on was, why isn't beer selling online? You can just throw technology and marketing at things, but why? Why is beer not selling online historically? And then
what's the psychology behind it?
Yeah, and then what can we do to try and kind of fix that? Now, to be honest, it was really easy. There's no margin in beer for retailers, so that's why they don't push it online. So we had to try and kind of fix that equation in some way, shape, or form, which we successfully did through the marketplace proposition, because they don't expect much margin. But honestly, that's how we got there, was spending time on the past. What's happened before we got here? How did we get here? And then what do we need to do to kind of build for that future that we're looking for, or more importantly, the future that consumers look for?
You can really see how you live that second one, that respect of the past, but one eye on the future, and, with your track record, and you can really see that eye on the future. So I think we'll change speeds now. So we're going to do a quick fire question round. Ready? Okay, so word association game. So pretty simple rules. I'll say a word and you say the thing that pops straight into your head. So we'll start. You ready to go?
Go for it.
Retail.
Media.
TikTok.
Data.
E-commerce.
Past.
Video.
Future.
Data.
Privacy.
And it wouldn't be a podcast right now without mentioning AI.
Hype.
And to round us out, slightly different, this is a separate question. What is your go-to online shop?
Go-to online shop. I'm embarrassed to say that currently my go-to online shop is actually Amazon. It, for me, serves a purpose where I'm incredibly time poor. And so I don't necessarily need something tomorrow. I don't, underplan for those type of things, but I actually use their subscription service where anything that's particularly regular in my house or becomes regular in my house, I just straight onto my Prime account and it turns up every, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it is that I need. And then I don't have to think about the toilet paper or the, the body wash or the toothpaste or the...
It works, doesn't it? It really works well.
My wife's drinking a lot of coconut water at the moment. So that just gets delivered every 4 weeks in the bulk that comes. And so, that's, for me, it tends to be a go-to, mainly because that subscription piece of it, but also... that convenience of, oh my God, I've just run out of XYZ. I can have it delivered to my door tomorrow.
Yeah. I was an early adopter on the who gives a crap. And fortunately before lockdown, and, I remember you could trade a roll of toilet paper for just about anything at one stage during lockdown. So
you definitely could. I'm also an early adopter of theirs. And so, and it's fallen into the rest of my shopping habits, to be honest.
Yeah, no, same. It's an interesting one, isn't it? When you realize the convenience of something like that you just can't afford to run out of, that subscription service really. And when you have a good user experience, I mean, they've done it really well. It rocks up, it's
all about the UX, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about the user experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually Amazon does better with their subscription than they do with the rest of their website. It's actually not the best user experience on it, but yeah, the subscription piece of it's definitely. Well, I think all three of us would be early adopters for models for the most online. So
I think that given where we are in regard to time and our careers, yes, we could probably all be early adopters.
This has been fantastic. I mean, I'm probably a late adopter comparatively to you, and your resume speaks for itself, and It's been a really interesting podcast. So Lance, thank you so much for a really awesome session, and we hope to get you on again soon in the future. And maybe you gave us another guest of the future. Maybe we need to have the infamous Faye on here as well. But thank you so much for your time. That was great.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Lance. Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Commerce Media Matters podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe. We're always on the pulse of the ever-changing landscape of commerce media, ready to share the newest trends, insightful perspectives, and expert opinions with you. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making media that matters. This podcast is executively produced and edited by Priya Tahazadeh, with co-producers Sandy Ho, Meg Lirsch, and me, Rachel Fang. This podcast is recorded on the lands of the Bidjigal, Gadigal, and Wurundjeri people, and we wish to acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land.